Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with the GBA Talk Show and also Crypto Mom 2. And I want to welcome you to this episode. And I also want to remind everyone who's listening, both on the audio side as well as on the visual side, to definitely like and subscribe because there are some wonderful conversations coming up shortly. And I want you to be able to listen and enjoy all of the episodes as they post. So, today, I have a very interesting guest, a special guest who's going to be talking more about Web3 and blockchain and the business development side and what's needed and what everyone should be thinking about as we navigate forward. Before I hop over to him, I want to share a little bit more about GBA. GBA Global is an organization that provides education and empowerment and also information for individuals around the world. And the Government Blockchain Association is based here in the Washington, D.C. area, and has many conferences. In fact, there's one coming up in September, which is about artificial intelligence. And so definitely I would suggest that you go to the website, gbaglobal.org, to learn more about the upcoming one. Depending upon when you actually listen to our conversation, definitely just go to that website so you can see all the ongoing events and education that is there. My background, for those that don't know me, my background is I'm an attorney, but I'm also in the education space, and I'm also an author of the Bitcoin Cinderella series. And I became very interested in blockchain about 5 years ago. I was very curious about it, and now that I am down this path, I understand the business applications and the creativity that's within this space. And I am very excited to be the talk show host and to be able to bring you all these conversations as they're unfolding. So today I have a very interesting guest, and he is a global citizen. His background is unbelievable in terms of what he's done. And I'm going to have him explain a little bit more because again, with all my guests, I want to make sure I'm always doing them justice. But how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks, Jacqueline.
Yeah, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Zeeve and how you got involved in the blockchain space. I know that you've done a variety of things during your life, and that brought you to where you are today. But why don't you go ahead and give a little snapshot about your path and what brought you here to us?
Right, thanks, Jacqueline, for inviting me. Hi, everyone. My name is Ravi. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Zeeve. I have been into IT space mostly as an entrepreneur for almost 20 plus years. Started with my journey with the dot-com in 1998 during the dot-com time, and then got into started working with various startups. I've worked in e-commerce and then insurance. And before getting into blockchain, I was into fintech space, mostly towards lending, SMB lending, for almost 7, 8 years. Got interested in blockchain, one owing to the whole philosophy of blockchain, creating trustless ecosystems, because I realized that when we talk about business transactions, when we talk about individual to individual, peer to peer transactions, there's a lack of trust, and the trust is very expensive today. So how can technology is enabling to reduce the cost of trust and bring in more trust and transparency in the various set of transactions that we do? And then, when I dig deeper into the technology per se, I liked it a lot. I saw the ramifications, and I was very convinced that, this is something which is going to change the internet as we see today. So that's how I got into blockchain in 2017. Initially started working in the enterprise space, building some products, mainly in the fintech space like trade finance, supply chain finance, and then worked for about 3 to 4 years under the brand name Sophocles, and then realized there's a huge opportunity in the infrastructure side, because like in Web2, we are very used to systems like AWS or DigitalOcean or GCP. If you're building a website, there are a lot of sophisticated dev tools. There's like cloud dashboard. You can quickly spin off nodes, and you can deploy your website or web application. But when we talk about Web3, these kind of tools are not there. And of course, if you want the enterprises, if you want large Web3 startups or developers to adopt blockchain, of course, it requires all the necessary ecosystem tools and resources. So that's where, we conceptualize the initially for our existing customer base, how to automate and make it so easy for someone who is building on blockchain to not worry about the infrastructure per se. So we started a journey 3 years back, initially with enterprise protocols like Hyperledger, Fabric, Sawtooth, and R3 Corda, and then, extended to public protocols. So the whole idea is that, if you are a blockchain developer or a Web3 startup or an enterprise who is building into blockchain, you may require different kind of APIs and nodes to connect with different blockchains. So that is what we provide. And then there are some more complex requirements in sometimes you want to build your own blockchain. So let's say if you are building an enterprise building a use case for remittances, they may want to have their own Fabric-based network or R3 Coda-based network, or using some of the app chains, creating your own custom blockchain. So there, of course, it's not just about simple APIs. You need to have all the tools and resources to deploy, manage, monitor, all these complex networks. So that is where Zeeve comes in. We are a SaaS-based no-code automation platform, and we have abstracted the whole infrastructure from the front-end applications. So anybody building an application finds it very easy. Like, they are used to use AWS. We provide the same kind of experience and comfort and reliability as they are used to seeing in the Web2 space.
So I'm going to share your platform, but then I have definitely I have some questions, because there might be those that are listening that don't have the vocabulary background. So I want to make sure that they understand. One of the first words that you used, and I've heard it a lot in our space, is trust. So can you give an example as to why that's important or what that means? Because someone who might be in business might understand it, but there might be those that are trying to step into, and they're a new entrepreneur. What does it really mean for the trust side of it?
So for example, today we talk about that, two entities, they are coming together, they are doing some business transaction. Now, to ensure that whatever terms have been decided to execute the transaction, they are encoded into a contract, and then there is a proper methodology where dispute resolutions will happen if some of the terms of the agreement are not managed or tempered upon. Now, so the trust is there. It's not that the trust is not there, but the trust today is very expensive. And when we talk about blockchain-based trust, then we are using technology for enabling these peer-to-peer transactions, where all different kind of terms can be encoded in something called smart contracts, and the business transaction can execute as per expected. And if somebody is not, managing its side of it, then the whole transaction can be reversed. So, for example, you see the whole atomicity, which has defined the whole DeFi ecosystem. So if you're doing a transaction A goes to B, for example, let's take an international remittance as an example. So for example, in international remittance, you are starting a wire from one country A, and it is going to reach a country Z. But before that, there may be 2-3 other hops that the transaction may take place. And sometimes may happen that, transaction may be blocked or delayed in one of the middle hops. Now, and it may delay the whole process. And, it impacts the user experience, it impacts the overall time, and it also impacts the transaction cost. Vis-a-vis in the blockchain, if such kind of transaction happens in a DeFi using smart contracts, if the transaction has got some problem at step 4 or step 3 before completing, the whole transaction can be reversed, and it automatically gets reversed. So what blockchain is trying to do is bring in that trust using encoded smart logic into these smart contracts and peer-to-peer transaction enability, where you do not need to know the other party, but whatever transaction needs to be done, whatever terms have been decided, we can be ensured that when the transaction happens, it follows all the underlying logic as well as the terms decided.
So I love how you explain that. The other thing that I heard you mention, and I know I'm just getting into the node world because I just purchased a node, so I could kind of explore it. but tell everyone more about what nodes are, why they're important within this system, and the difference between maybe not using a node versus using a node. Obviously, in the blockchain, we do have nodes. So can you explain a little bit more about that?
Okay, so I'll start, taking a very simple comparison with the Web2 world. So let's say you've built an application or a website and you want to host it. So you have an option, either you can go to GoDaddy or HostGator and take a shared hosting space, or you can, let's say, go to AWS and take a dedicated instance, a virtualized instance. And if you're launching a bigger application, then you may require more instances. You may require one instance for hosting your application, one instance for hosting your database, and then you may require some redundancy for managing the backups, etc., etc. Right? So depending on your website or application requirement, you may choose a simple shared hosting where you can put in 5-page WordPress website. To a large e-commerce site, you may require redundancy and database instances, application instances, and so on and so forth. And then you may require, even more complex application, you may require some value-added services. You may require some key management for encrypting your data, or you may require some, legacy integrations if it's a large enterprise application. Now, draw a corollary to within the Web3 ecosystem, the things become much more complex because just imagine, let's say, take a public protocol like Polygon. Now, Polygon has got thousands of nodes. It's a network which consists of all nodes. And each node has got, the complete copy of the ledger data. So whenever new transactions come into the blockchain ledger, it gets synced up across all the different nodes in the network. Now, you have built an application, a simple decentralized application, and now you want to talk to the blockchain network. So there are two options again. One, like shared hosting, in this case, you can use shared APIs. And by shared APIs, what we mean is that we as Zeeve are, let's say, running a network of 20, 30, 100 nodes across the world. And you get APIs, a shared APIs that you can simply use to submit transactions to the blockchain, or if you want to query something from the blockchain. So both to and fro transactions. The second option is that you may, so APIs are sufficient for quite a few developers and Web3 startups, especially when they are building their DApp or when initially they launch, there is not many users or transactions. So the shared infrastructure is good for them. But if let's say you are building an application which requires huge amount of, you're expecting a lot of resources like transactions, user base, etc. So then you may opt for a dedicated hosting. Like in Web2, we have dedicated hosting. You have dedicated node infrastructure. So you want to set up a node which totally belongs to you, and all the transactions within your application are using that node to interact with the blockchain network. So that is how the dedicated node functions. Now, sometimes, your application may be global in nature. You may require multiple nodes residing in different geographies so that there is low latency for each user who is accessing your application. Because if you have just one node and node is residing in, let's say, US, and somebody is accessing the application from Hong Kong, may see some kind of latency. So if you want to get better performance, the nodes are distributed across different geographies so that user can, access the node which is nearest to them. So then you require dedicated node infrastructure. So this is what typically a node is. And then there is a third area where you are launching your own blockchain. So then you're not just adding a node to an existing public blockchain like Polygon or Ethereum, but you're launching your own blockchain. Now, for launching your own blockchain means either you're using something like Hyperledger Fabric or R3 Corda to create your own blockchain, or you're using app chains, which are the latest new generation blockchains, like Avalanche subnets or Polygon supernets or Substrate parachains. So you're creating your own blockchain. So there, of course, you need to take care of all the nodes. You need to deploy, manage, monitor all these nodes because all your nodes are collectively forming your network. So this is three areas: shared APIs, dedicated nodes, and a dedicated network, which consists of multiple nodes. So this is the whole gamut of infrastructure which everyone would require, either of them.
Yeah, no, you made it very understandable. I tied to that, I heard that you mentioned that your application is no code. So can you explain a little bit more about that? Because that intrigued me from the the idea that I'm not a coder, so the idea that you can actually work within a system that doesn't require that knowledge was very interesting to me. So can you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, so the whole idea is that, we are like AWS for blockchain. And the whole idea is that when you are consuming infrastructure, you do not need to worry about anything which is going underlying, whether it be blockchain protocol, whether it be how the data indexing is working, how the underlying cloud infrastructure is working. So everything is abstracted. So it's completely do it yourself. Like, starting from shared APIs, it's very easy, like we have seen in the cloud interfaces. But even for more complex deployments, like, setting up a Fabric network. Now, setting up a Fabric network manually may take about 3 to 4 weeks. And still, it may be error prone. It may lack standardization. It may lack some of the security best practices. But, through Zeeve, it's a completely no code. You can put in the configuration in a wizard kind of interface, and it will deploy the complete network with proper standardization, following all the security best practices. And at the same time, it will be completely error free, highly optimized from a cost, performance, and security perspective. So that is what we mean by no code. It's completely do it yourself. And then, what we realize that this is the core infrastructure, but then enterprises do require some of the legacy integrations. And then they may require integration with other tool sets. For example, we are generating alerts and notification whenever something is wrong with the network. Now, those notifications can go into your Slack. If within your organization you're using Slack or Microsoft Teams or any other communication platform, it can directly go there so that all your communication are in one place. Similarly, we are doing integration with other dev tools and platforms so that, people continue to use whatever platforms they have been using.
So thank you so much for that. I'm on your website. For those that are on the audio side, definitely hop on over to the Zoom side so you can also see. And the other thing that I want to mention to everyone is that the connection link will definitely be embedded in the blog below. So if you would like to hop over to the platform, it's zeeve.io. And I'm looking at the face page, and explain for everyone what the difference is between a public blockchain or an enterprise blockchain, because they might not know what the definitions are.
Right. So public blockchains are blockchains which are open to everyone. So anyone can read any kind of data. Anyone can join the blockchain, in like a validator or a miner. So anyone can, following certain rules, can become a validator and start submitting data or validating data that will be submitted into the blockchain ledger. And at the same time, anyone can read any of the data on the blockchain. So there is no spatial access control which are required. And that is why they are called public blockchains. Vis-a-vis that, when we talk about enterprises, they do have, let's say there's a supply chain traceability use case. Now, typically the data access will be given to only people who are participant in this network. So there may be different supply chain intermediaries, there may be manufacturers, there may be suppliers, wholesalers, retailers. So they only would have access to data, and there also there may be segregation that one supplier may not have access to data of another supplier, right? So so these kind of permissioning and access controls are required. So that is what we call a permission blockchain. And then there are hybrid blockchains where you may have data um, writing may happen with some access controls, but data view access may be with everyone or a different set of users. So there may be hybrid kind of scenario. So enterprises now traditionally, first started using enterprise protocols like Fabric, Besu, R3 Corda, etc. Now enterprises, as the use cases are opening up, if you see a lot of tokenization use cases, NFT use cases, institutional DeFi, so quite a few enterprises are now building on public protocols also. So they are building on Polygon, they're building on Avalanche or Polkadot ecosystem. So this is what a difference between public and enterprise blockchain is.
Thank you for explaining. I'm looking at your website or platform, and I see a variety of names of companies that you've serviced and that you've supported. Is there anyone in particular that might stand out that you would like to highlight as to how you've supported them? Because there's a whole long.
Yeah, so take an example of, for example, block tickets in NFT ticketing platform.
I was just looking.
So
Yeah, I was very curious as to how that worked. Yes.
yeah, so what they are doing is there are quite a few challenges when we talk about the event and ticketing related to sporting events or movies or various other kinds of events. So they are tokenizing using NFT these events and adding whole piece of experiences into it. So one is by tokenizing, they are providing absolute ownership of the ticket. So a lot of challenges related to fake tickets or duplicacy of tickets or black market selling, etc., can be resolved using that. Second, these are experiential tickets. So different kind of experiences can be embedded into the ticket. For example, during an event, if some a promoter wants to promote something and want to specifically target a certain set of wallets, they can do that because all the tickets are in the form of tokens. So there are quite a few areas that they are looking at. And then, for example, there is Trade Reboot. So Trade Reboot is a trade finance consortium. It's an enterprise consortium. They are connecting importers, exporters, exporting bank, importing bank, and various intermediaries, whether it be freight forwarders, custom agencies, etc., connecting them together and facilitating international trade finance. So cutting down, there's a huge documentation overload, almost 35% of the cost of trade finances owing to the documentation. So they are cutting down the documentation creation to validation, verification, enabling transaction, cutting down huge amount of cost as well as time to do a trade finance transaction. And then we have a lot of DeFi customers, NFT customers. We have a lot of enterprise customers who are using our platform for deploying Fabric or Avalon subnets or Polygon supernets.
What I like about your discussion is you've explained two different sides of the types of businesses, both from the paperwork side in terms of how it has to be thought about, but also from the individualization part of it, like with the ticket side, to try to customize for each experience. So again, those are highly specialized, and I know your company and your support team had to think through each step in order to help the client achieve what their goal was. So I'm scrolling on down, and you have a very detailed oriented in terms of the 24/7 resource monitoring, the deployment options, the high performance. You've talked about on your platform all the various things that you are able to do. Before we wrap up, because we have about maybe another 5 minutes of our conversation, is where do you see this going? Where do you see both Zeeve heading or the Web3 going in terms of what the needs are and how you're going to be able to support that?
Yeah, so one, I would say Web3 is going pretty strong. People over a period of time, tried out did a lot of POCs, pilots, burned their fingers. But now people have become wiser. There are established use cases. People are realizing the value of forming trustless ecosystems, value of smart contracts, value of different token standards, whether it be NFTs or fungible tokens or tokenization of real world assets. So there are quite a few areas now which are well established, and a lot of people, we are seeing a huge amount of trust among the startups, among the enterprises who are getting into Web3. So from a Web3 perspective overall, we are quite bullish, very optimistic. And we believe that in next 8 to 10 years, the whole backbone of the internet that we see today will be governed or will be backed by blockchain. So blockchain is the infrastructure technology, and it will form the infrastructure. So if you talk about IoT or if you talk about AI, they will all be operating where the underlying layer would be blockchain. Because every kind of transaction, whether it be AI, IoT, or any other kind of technology, they do require a trustless network underneath and some kind of automation in terms of transaction processing. From Zeeve perspective, yes, since blockchain is going to be the infrastructure of the new internet, we want to be one of the leading players in terms of supporting this infrastructure of blockchain infrastructure, making it so easy for anyone who wants to adopt blockchain. Because one of the challenge in adopting blockchain is the whole understanding the blockchain part of it, and that is what we want to simplify it. Abstract it, and still give you the same kind of comfort that people are used to in the Web2 space. Reliability or security and uptime and scalability of underlying infrastructure, and so that people can focus on building their application across industries, across use cases, and they don't need to worry about the underlying infrastructure.
I think that, we have two different layers going on. We have the individuals who are already aware of the fact that they need to transition to blockchain and are slowly. Then we have a whole nother group of businesses that are still asking, what is it? And they will end up coming over to the blockchain and using individuals like yourself and the services like yourself to help them kind of hop over the fence, because blockchain offers a lot of benefits, and both from the security perspective as well as the speed perspective, and there's so many different applications that are being developed. So like you said, where we were in the internet at the beginning and where we're going, it's you know it's almost generational too, because again, as an educator, the students are already doing so much within this space. It's more individuals like myself who had to learn and kind of hop over. So having your company be there, so the new generation as well as those that are not so new can just kind of come to you and say, okay, this is what I want, let's go for it. It's very exciting to see, and I cannot wait to see how your company evolves and the clients that you're going to be supporting. um, where The other question I always like to ask is, where are you located? What
Uh,
and globally, who do you support?
so it's a global platform. Today we have users, customers, enterprises across the globe. Major penetration being in US, UK, Europe, and Australia, and then we are expanding into whole Asia Pacific and Asian regions. So we are our parent company is based out of US, and then we have sales offices in Dubai and Europe, and tech team. Large part of the tech team sits out of India. But from a user perspective, the platform is a global platform. It serves anyone. As I mentioned, it's a no-code platform, so most of the users, it's completely do it yourself. They come on the platform, they sign up, and then start using it. And we have users across the globe.
That's awesome. I can't wait to explore it myself. So thank you so much for hopping on, everyone. As I mentioned, all the contact information will be embedded in the blog below. Definitely visit gbaglobal.org to learn more about the events that are coming up, and you can also visit my site, cryptomom2.com, if you want to reach out to me and learn more about various areas that I support. But as I always say at the end of every broadcast, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're all so interconnected and we're all part of one world. Thank you so much for being on, and like and subscribe so you can stay tuned for the next episode. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.